تفضل عمر. الحمد لله رب العالمين صلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. طيب, so 20 minutes, Shaykh. We're going to wrap up, and we're going to begin the section exemptions and concessions. Exemptions and concessions, and that includes 3 ahadeeth. تفضل عمر.
Hadith 546, narrated Shaykh Abdullah that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam
اللهم صل وسلم.
departed to Mecca in Ramadan in the year of the conquest, and he and the people fasted till he came to Qura al-Ghamim. He then called for a cup of water, which he raised until the people looked at it. Then he drank. He was told afterwards that some of the people had continued to fast, and he said, "Those are the disobedient ones, those are the disobedient ones." Another version has, "The people are finding fasting difficult and are waiting for what you will do." He then called for a cup of water, and when it was after the Asr prayer, and drank. 547. Narrated Hamza bin Amr al-Aslami radiyallahu anhu. He said, "O Rasulullah, I find myself strong enough to fast while traveling. So would it be wrong for me to do so?" Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, It is a permission given by Allah, and whoever acts upon it has done well. But if anyone wished to fast, he would not be guilty of sin." Reported by Muslim. Its origin is found in Bukhari and Muslim from Aisha's report that Hamza bin Amr had asked.
ممتاز. طيب, al-Musafir, the one who's traveling. These ahadith indicate that he is allowed to fast if he so chooses, but he's also allowed to break his fast if he so chooses. Even if he fasted akthar al-nahar, even if he fasted most of the day, and he chose to break his fast 2 hours before, for example, al-iftar, the time for fast breaking, he could do that. He is allowed. He's given what? The rukhsa. He's given what? The option. And this is something which is agreed upon by the scholars, as mentioned by Ibn Qudama and Ibn Taymiyyah, that the one who fasts is allowed to fast. He can fast if he likes to, and he also can break his fast if he so chooses. And the illah, the allowance or the excuse or the reason, the justification is just what? Mutlaq as-safar. It is just what? Traveling. So it's not traveling with hardship, it's just what? Traveling. Okay? Suppose someone said that Allah said about the one who travels, فَمَنْ كَانَ مِنْكُمْ مَرِيضًا أَوْ عَلَى سَفَرٍ فَعِدَّةٌ مِّنْ أَيَّامٍ أُخَرٍ. Whoever amongst you is ill or on a journey, then let him what? Make up the missed days from other days. Doesn't this indicate that the one who is traveling should break his fast and make up the missed days? Okay? The fact that Allah said فَعِدَّةٌ مِّنْ أَيَّامٍ أُخَرٍ, that he can make up the missed days, or he should make up the missed days, doesn't mean that if he chooses to fast, it won't be accepted. It will be accepted. Okay? But just giving him the option that what? Should he break his fast, he has to make up those days. طيب, what about the statement of the Prophet, أُولَٰئِكَ الْأُصَاةِ, those ones who continue to fast, they are the disobedient ones? That is because they were experiencing hardship and they didn't obey his command to break the fast while they experienced hardship. So that's why they were usat. Not because they were fasting while they were traveling, but because when he commanded them to break the fast, they didn't do so. That's what made them usat. That's what made them disobedient ones, rebellious ones.
If the hadith is saying that he commanded, in the translation I don't see.
Huh?
In this hadith, it says that Prophet commanded them.
He commanded by his action. By his action. By breaking his fast. He commanded them. Then finally, there's a hadith, ليس من البر الصيام في السفر. It's not from righteousness to fast while you're traveling. This hadith refers to the one who fasts and experiences hardship whilst fasting and traveling. That hadith refers to the one who is fasting and experiences hardship while fasting, not the one who doesn't. So the one who should break his fast and is discouraged or maybe even prohibited from fasting is the one who fasts whilst traveling and experiences hardship. As for the one who does not experience any hardship and is able to fast, he may what? Fast, and his fast will be accepted even though he is traveling. طيب. All right, let's do the next one, Amr 631. Yeah, mine's from the Arabic. You're right. 540. You're right. I'm sorry. Mine's the Arabic. I'm sorry. Go ahead. 549. Yeah, sorry about that.
Do we do 548?
No, we didn't do 48.
We just finished it. Remember, right before we prayed, we talked about vomiting.
No, you finished 448.
That's what I want. 548. Yeah,
No.
that's what I want. I'm sorry, not 549. So 548.
548.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I want that. Yes.
Radiallahu anhuma, an old man is permitted to break his fast in Ramadan and feed a poor for every day, and no atonement is required of him. Reported by al-Qutni and al-Hakim, who also authenticated it.
So this is the last hadith under exemptions and concessions. This is the last hadith under exemptions and concessions. The first two relate to a safar, they relate to traveling. And this last one is related to what? It's related to the people who experience difficulty or are unable to fast. Unable to fast. And this is the last hadith under exemptions and concessions. I'm sorry. So we should have read through that actually. I stopped you too early. I apologize about that. طيب. All right. The Quran and the ayat that prescribe fasting divide those who fast min jihat as-sihha, from the point of view of health, into three categories. The first category are able-bodied individuals. Able-bodied individuals. The second group are those who are ill, but the illness that they're suffering from is a temporary illness from which they are expected to ultimately recover. They will ultimately recover from this illness. So although the illness is a serious illness, a major illness that does not permit them to fast, it is a temporary illness from which they ultimately are expected to what? To recover. The third category are those who suffer from a chronic illness from which they are not expected to recover, or which will what? Which will dwell for a long period of time, and it is a major illness. A major illness from which they are not expected to recover, or which will what? Dwell for an extended length of time. The first group, able-bodied, are required to fast. ويدل عليه, and this is evidenced by the statement of Allah, فَمَنْ شَهِدَ مِنْكُمُ الشَّهْرَ فَلْيَصُمْ. Whoever amongst you is a resident and able to fast, must what? Fast. The proof for the second group, those who have these major illnesses, but they're what? Passing, fleeting, temporary, and they're expected to recover. They are not allowed to fast while suffering from this major injury, or major illness, I should say. But once they recover, they should resume fasting and make up the days they missed due to illness at a later time. And this is evidenced by the statement of Allah, فَمَنْ كَانَ مِنْكُمْ مَرِيضًا أَوْ عَلَى سَفَرٍ فَعِدَّةٌ مِّنْ أَيَّامٍ أُخَرٍ. So whoever amongst you is ill or on a journey, then other days, or let him make up the missed days from other days. Finally, those who have major illnesses which are chronic and prevent them from fasting, or will present a major hardship if they were to fast, then those people do not fast. They do not fast, and as opposed to fasting, they feed for every day that they miss one poor person. وَيَدُلِّ ذَلِكَ, and this is evidenced by the statement of Allah, وَعَلَى الَّذِينَ يُطِيقُونَهُ فِدْيَةٌ طَعَامُ مِسْكِينٍ. And as for those who fast with hardship, a great deal of difficulty, or they cannot fast at all, then let them feed for every day that they miss a poor person. طيب. So these are the three groups that Allah has described in terms of health and the rulings for each one in the Quran. So the person who falls into the second category, they have some, for example, they have something like pneumonia. Okay? Person who has pneumonia, is that a major illness? Major illness? Ahadeeth. Ahadeeth. Temporary? Ahadeeth. So when the person recovers from pneumonia, they resume what? Fasting. And then they make up the days they missed due to the illness at a later time. You guys see that? But you have a person who has an illness like diabetes. Okay? And they have to take medications, they have to take insulin, and they have to maintain what? A certain level of sugar by what? By eating regular meals. This person has what? A chronic illness, a major illness. Don't expect to be cured from it. They fall into what? That third category. And so this person, rather than fasting, would do what? Would feed for every day a poor person. وَعَلَى هَذَا فَقِسْ. So make an analogy with that. Put the people in three categories based upon what? Their reality. Is the illness major or minor? Minor illness like the common cold, sniffles, sore throat. What category do you put them in? Huh? Okay, let me give you the categories again. Able-bodied, able to fast. Number 2, major illness, but not chronic, temporary, fleeting. Number 3, major illness, chronic. I have the sniffles. I have a sore throat. Able-bodied, get over here and start fasting. Deal with it. Endure, right? All right, number 2. Okay, I'll give you another example. A person with hypertension, high blood pressure, has to remain medicated throughout the day. Okay? And has to maintain a certain maybe diet. Has to with the pills, they have to take food, for example. They have to eat food with the pills. What category do you put them in? Huh? 3. Chronic, major, can't fast. Right? So they would do what? They feed every day a poor person. Add to that last category, al-Hamil, wal-Murdi'. Add to that the woman who is pregnant and breastfeeding, according to the fatwa of Ibn Abbas, that she should do what? Feed for every day a poor person, and she shouldn't make qada. Okay, so she doesn't make qada. But she does what instead? Feeds for every day a poor person. And also, as Ibn Abbas mentioned, also the one who is elderly and their body is infirm and they're unable to what? To bear fasting. They also fall in that category, as mentioned by Ibn Abbas in his what? In his fatwa. طيب, mas'ala. There's an issue related to this that I'll touch on really quickly. Suppose you have a person who falls into that last category. No. They fall into the second category. I'm sorry, second category. Second category, what do they do when they're not fasting? They have to make it up, al-qada, right? طيب, suppose, ya ikhwan, that a person has 7 days from Ramadan and they delay the qada. They delay the qada until the next Ramadan. Next Ramadan starts and they haven't made up the 7 days from the previous. Okay? What do we do about them? What do we do about them? Okay, they're going to have to fast Ramadan because the excuse is no longer there. But what do they do about these 7 days now? Just make them up, that's it? Who said feed the poor? Ahsant. So, according to Malik, al-Shafi'i, and Ahmad, and it's been authentically narrated to be the opinion of Abu Hurairah and Ibn Abbas, if the person delayed this qada out of negligence, they just, let the time get away from themselves. They didn't have they weren't sick, there was no legitimate excuse, but they let it what? The time got away from the next thing, oh no, it's Ramadan again. That person, when they make up, not only do they have to fast those missed days, but they also have to feed, in addition to that, a poor person as a kafara for what? For their tafrit, for their what? Their negligence. You guys see that? This is important for those of us who have wives, who have been pregnant during what? During Ramadan. Or breastfeeding during Ramadan. And they keep putting off what? The qada. Putting it off. Next thing you know, Ramadan comes and they haven't made what? Haven't made qada. So bear that in mind, to make sure that your wives do their qada and that you're reminding them to do their qada. Because what can happen is that if they are negligent and the next Ramadan comes around, then they have what? They have those days plus what? The kafara.
So, did you earlier say that the pregnant and the breastfeeding women went to what category?
They're in the third category, according to Ibn Abbas.
So they don't have to make it out. They don't have to feed. They don't have to make it out. They have to feed the poor.
Sah. I should have said the menses. You're right. I'm sorry. The one who is the menses, not the pregnant woman. You're right. Jimmy. Okay. So the menses. Asif. Thank you for that. All right, there was one other thing I wanted to mention on this point related to this one. Okay. Hopefully it'll come to me next one. Let's go to the next set of a hadith. Yeah.
549. Narrated Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu. A man came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and said, O Messenger of Allah, I'm ruined. He asked him, what has ruined you? He replied, I have had intercourse with my wife during Ramadan. He then asked him, can you get a slave to free? He said no. He asked, can you fast 2 consecutive months? He said no. He asked, can you provide food for 64 people? He said no. He then sat down. Meanwhile, an araq containing dates was brought to the Prophet ﷺ. He said, give this as sadaqah. The man said, am I to give to one who is poorer than we are? There is no poorer family than mine between the 2 mountains of Medina. The Prophet ﷺ thereupon laughed till his canine teeth appeared. He then said, go and feed your family. Go and feed your family with it. Reported by Sir'ah, and the version is that of Muslim. Should I do 551?
551, hold off on 551. We're going to put that with the one who dies owing. Okay? طيب. So now this one we can put under the heading, this one hadith, 549, under the heading of expiation. Kaffara, expiation. Okay? طيب. There's a few points that we'll just mention quickly for this hadith. The first one is that this hadith is an evidence that the kaffara, this expiation that the Prophet mentioned, is required for the one who had intercourse during the daytime hours or the daylight hours of Ramadan, عامداً متعمداً, intentionally and purposefully. He did it intentionally, knowing full well what he was doing, and willfully, then that person will what? Be required to pay this expiation. As for the one who did so out of forgetfulness or did so unintentionally, then his ruling will be like the one who ate or drank out of forgetfulness. You guys see that? His ruling will be like that ruling. The next issue is, what about the woman? Does the woman have to pay a kafara as well? I want you to notice something about this hadith. The Prophet ﷺ never asked about the woman. Never asked, was she a willing participant? Never asked anything about the woman. There's a principle that the scholars they mentioned. They say, ترك الاستفصال في مقام الاحتمال ينزل منزلة العموم في المقال. When the Prophet ﷺ is asked something, and he doesn't ask for any details, he just gives what? A ruling without any details. It's as if he's saying, regardless of the details, this is what? This is the ruling. I'll give you an example. The Prophet, he said, لا تسافر المرأة إلا مع ذي محرم. A woman should never travel except with a mahram, a male relative who's what? Of age. So then a man, he stood up and he said, Ya Rasulullah, inna imra'ati kharajat hajatan wa inni iktutibtu fi ghazwati kada wa kada famadha asna'. He said, O Messenger of Allah, my wife has already left with a group of people going for Hajj, and I have been signed up for such and such delegation or such and such expedition. So the Prophet said, Intaliq fahujj ma imra'atik. He said, forget about this expedition and go and make Hajj with your wife. Notice the Prophet ﷺ, he didn't say, is the group of people she's with, are they trustworthy people? He didn't say the group of people that she's with, is it safe? Do they have, some people who are tough and rough and can ward off any highway rock? He didn't ask any details. So it's as if the Prophet is saying, regardless of the circumstances, your wife cannot do what? Cannot travel alone. You guys see that? That's what we call tark al-istifsal fi mawadi' al-ihtimal. The Prophet didn't ask for any details, even though there's what? Lots of possibilities. It's as if he's saying, regardless of the circumstances, this is the ruling. So when the Prophet ﷺ in this hadith, the man came and he said, I had relations with my wife in Ramadan. Didn't ask, well, did she seduce you? Was she a willing partner? He just said what? Alayka al-kaffara. You have to pay the kaffara. That means what? Regardless of the circumstances, the responsibility falls on who? On the man. You guys see that? Because the Prophet didn't ask about the woman. Make sense? طيب. The next thing is, what if a person was from one of those people who they have to make qada? You guys with me? He was from those people who he was ill in Ramadan or traveling in Ramadan, and so he has some days from Ramadan he has to make up. So after Ramadan has come and gone, he's in the process of making up those days. And the days he's making up are days which are from what? An obligatory fast. You guys with me? Suppose that person became weak and was intimate with his wife. Would he have to pay the same kafara? What do you guys think? Yes. He says yes. He has to pay the same kafara. The answer, ya ikhwani, is that he doesn't have to pay the same kafara because it didn't occur in Ramadan. Even though the fast he's making up is the fast of Ramadan. And this is the opinion of what? The early Muslims, the Sahaba, and there's no what? Khilaf amongst them about this. That if the person, even though he's making up an obligatory fast, As long as it didn't occur in Ramadan, then the kafara is not applicable. He would just have to make up that day. Ma'al itham. Ma'al itham. He would be what? Sinful, but he would have to make the kafara. طيب ثم بعد ذلك, is the kafara specific to al-jima'? Is it specific? This one's beeping a lot, man. Is the kafara specific to intimacy? Or is it any mufattir? Anything. So for example, let's say a person, instead of having relations, he what? He had a sandwich. Would this kafara be applicable? So if the person had a sandwich, does he have to fast? As the Prophet said, he said, can you free a slave? He said, no. He said, can you fast 60 days consecutively? He said, I couldn't even fast one day. So now the person eats a sandwich. Does he have to fast 60 days consecutively? La. If he had a sandwich, he doesn't have to fast 6 days, but he has to do what? He has to make the day up, and he can never make the day up. All he can do is what? Fast a day in place of that day. He'll never make that day up. You guys understand that? You understand what I mean by that? He has to fast. He has to do it to get checked off, but he'll never make up that day. He'll never make it up, but he has to what? He has to fast that day again, but he won't have the kafara. This kafara al-mughallada, this very strict and strident kafara is specific to what? Al-jima', it's specific to intimacy. Faqat. Anything else he does to break his fast will not what require this kafara, but he will be what? Sinful. He'll have to make up the day, and he'll never be able to make it up. طيب, the last thing we're going to mention, this kafara. هل هي على ترتيب? Is it, or does it have to be carried out in the order that the Prophet said? Meaning, if he's able to free a slave, he has to free a slave. He can't fast. And if he's able to fast, he can't feed. Or is he allowed to do what? Yakhtar. Is he allowed to what? Say, hey, this is the easiest one for me, I'll take that one. The Prophet ordered alayhi shay ala tartib. He said, هل تستطيع أن تعتق رقبة? He said, are you able to free a slave? Meaning what? If you can do that, you have to do that. Then he said, ما أقدر. He said, I can't do it. So then the Prophet said, هل تستطيع أن تصوم شهرين متتابعين? Are you able to fast 2 months consecutively? As if to say, if you can do that, you can't feed 60 people. So the Prophet gave it to him ala tartib, so he has to do it in that order. He has to do it in that order. And since there's not too many slaves running around here, most people will be fasting 60 days. So think about it. Think about it. طيب. We're almost done. I think that was the last thing. All right, let's do the last. I want to mention one last thing about al-musafir, because I forgot this in the previous segment. Al-musafir, if he traveled and then he returned. So now think about this. Let's say that you have a musafir who traveled to Chicago for business. And he returned from his travel from Chicago at like 5 p.m. Has another what? 3 to 4 hours before he can, before the fasting will end. Okay? Does he have to then refrain from eating and drinking for that next 3 or 4 hours? Does he have to do that? Ibn Mas'ud, he said, من أكل أول النهار فليأكل آخره. He said, whoever ate at the beginning of the day, then let him what? Eat at the end of the day. Meaning, if you weren't fasting in the beginning, then you don't fast at the end. You guys understand that? So for example, if a woman was on her period, and then her period ends around dhuhr, okay, she doesn't start what? Fasting from dhuhr. You guys got that? Because it won't count. You guys understand that? So she just begins fasting from the next day. The same thing is true for the one who traveled. If he traveled, he wasn't fasting while he traveled, and he returned home, then it makes no sense to do what? Fast from 5 o'clock till 9, or 5 to 8:30. You guys understand that? That basically, if he didn't fast the first part, he might as well not fast. The rest of the part of the statement of Ibn Abbas. Go ahead.
I got a question.
Tafadhal.
So, let's say a person is traveling to, from his house to his grandmother's house. He gets there, so that's his destination. Does he start fasting when he gets there, or is he still considered a traveler and he doesn't have to fast?
Where is his grandmother's house?
Let's say Chicago.
Okay. So you're saying he starts out from here, not fasting. Or is he fasting?
Let's say he leaves, after Maghrib, so he's not fasting at that point.
Mumtaz. Okay.
Travels to Chicago,
Uh-huh.
and he gets there.
You're saying either aqam, once he gets there.
Yeah, so once he gets to his destination,
Uh-huh.
and he's gonna stay there for, let's say, a week or two, right?
Eh.
Does he?
No, if he's gonna stay there for a week or two, once he gets there, he's a muqim.
So he does.
He's a resident, so yeah, he has to fast. But let's say he's gonna stay there for 2 days, then he'd have the option. He'd have the option. As long as he's a musafir, as long as he's a traveler, by definition, then what? He's allowed to take the rukhsa, take the concession.
So when does the concession end? Then is it after 4 days the concession ends?
The scholars differ, but perhaps the strongest opinion is that it's 4 days or 20 prayers, 20 salat. So anytime after that, okay, if you stay more than 4 days, or you stay more than 20 prayers, you're a muqim. So if I go someplace and I know I'm going to stay 5 days, then as soon as I get there, I'm a muqim. Go to some place, I'm going to say 2 days, I'm a musafir. You follow me? Like that. That's how you look at it.
Okay,
And the proof is that when the Prophet went to I want to say Mecca for Umrah al-Qadha, the Umrah that they made Qadha, when they made the first Umrah, they weren't able to make it. So when they came back the next time, he stayed for exactly 4 days and prayed 20 prayers. And then he left. When he left, he went to what? A place outside of Mecca and sat there and then traveled from there. So that's one proof they use. The other proof he used is that he told the people, the muhajirin, that when they went to Mecca not to remain for more than 3 days. So they say from this you see that one of the things that the muhajir is not supposed to do is to yubtil hijratahu. He's not supposed to what? Do anything to nullify his hijrah. So as if the Prophet is saying, if you go there and you stay more than 3 days, you will become a muqim. You'll become a resident, and this will negate what? Your hijrah. You guys understand that? That was still when Mecca obviously was under the pagans. So that's the proof that they use. Now the scholars differ about this, but this is the strongest opinion. Allah knows best.
So something that I've noticed is that when people travel, even if they know they're going to stay for, let's say, 10 days, they'll take a concession for the first 4 days, and then after the 4th day,
No, as soon as once you know for certain, the only one who could take the concession indefinitely is the one who goes to a place and he doesn't know when he's going to leave. You follow me? So the person who says, if I finish my business, I'll leave tomorrow. I'll leave tomorrow. I'll leave tomorrow. He's always what? A traveler. You understand that? But the one who says, no, I'm going here and I know my business will take 5 days or 7 days or 10 days. That person, as soon as he gets there, he's a muqim. Right? And that's how we reconcile between those ahadeeth where you have, for example, the companions going to a place like Azerbaijan and staying there for 20 days, 30 days, 40 days, how long they stayed there, and they remained what? Musafirin. But they went what? To confront the enemy, and they didn't know how long they would be there. So because they didn't know they were there and they didn't know how long they'd stay, they could continue to take advantage of what? Of the rukhsa. But once you know, hey, I'm going to be here for this length of time, and it exceeds 4 days or 20 prayers, you're a muqim. Got it? تفضل يا شيخ.
I work in the airline industry,
Hey.
and I'd rather fast because if I'm going to make up, I'll have to make up 18, 20 days.
Hey.
More than that sometimes. When we fly west sometimes to Japan, especially in the summer, you're staring at the sun the whole 13 hours, 14 hours.
Subhanallah.
Is it okay to just, for example, I fast here. Is it okay to break fast with people in Detroit while the sun is still?
No, if you travel and you see the sun, and the sun is ultimately going to set, you're not in a situation where it will not set, then you have to go by the setting of the sun. Even though, like you said, sometimes we travel with the sun, and so it extends the day. As long as the sun will set, you have to go by the setting of the sun. Okay? I'm sorry, but that's just the way it works. But if you're in an area where the sun won't set, you guys know that there are parts of the world where they will have daylight for 3 months or whatever, however long it lasts. I don't want to exaggerate, but you guys get the point. Okay, I never lived there, but it's a long period of time. So they have no choice but to do what? فَقْدِرُوا لَهُ. They have no choice but to what? To estimate it based upon the closest place where they have what? A day and a night. They have no choice to do that, but to do that. Because otherwise they would be fasting perpetually and no one can do that.
Is that with the calculation or the...
What do you mean calculation? They know the country next over, a few countries over, they're, for example, breaking fast at 8:30, for example. So they would break fast at 8:30. You guys see that? And they use to prove the famous hadith of the Dajjal. You guys know this hadith? Where the Prophet said that the Dajjal will come and there will be a day which will be like a sana. It'll be like a whole year. Another day which will be like a month. Another day which will be like a week. And then the rest of the days that he'll be present on the earth will be like your normal days. So then the companion said, okay, when it relates to that year, that day which is like a year, will we just pray 5 prayers? Or will we have to estimate? He said, no, you'll have to estimate. So you have a day which is like 1 year, but you'll have to estimate 5 prayers for what? For what should be each day. You guys understand what I mean? So that shows that, or that's what the scholars have used to show that if there's no setting of the sun, then they're supposed to do what? They're supposed to basically estimate. And the way that they estimate is by looking at what? The closest land where they have what? They have a day and a night, basically. Not further.
Can you count by hours?
Hmm?
Can you count by hourly?
Hourly, like, well,
Not from Michigan, like 14 hours, 16 hours.
well, it wouldn't. They probably wouldn't do Michigan because there would be something close. There was some place which is closer. So, for example, let's say they're in the North Pole, okay, and they have this issue, and then you go towards Canada, and there's a place as they work their way south. There's a place in Canada, the northern part of Canada, which has what? Night and day. And let's just say that their day is 20 hours. Okay, may Allah protect us from it being 20 hours, but let's just say it's 20 hours, okay? Then they would have to go with that. You guys understand that? They'd have to go with that. So let's say that in that little town or whatever, that's the closest town to them that has a night and a day, Fajr comes in at 2:50. And Salat al-Isha is 11 o'clock, let's say. Then that would be their day and night. Even though they would have sunlight the whole time, they would have to say what? Fajr's at 2:50, so we have to stop eating. And then 11 o'clock, we break our fast, for example. You guys see that? Yeah. Not to fault anybody?
I mean, that's how, but I believe in Anchorage, Alaska. That's how it is in Anchorage. It's almost 20 hours daylight. So the closest state they call is Washington. We call Washington, Seattle. And if Seattle cut their fast, then they would.
You said Anchorage, they have 20 hours?
Yeah.
So if they have 20 hours, but listen to this. They have 20 hours of daylight. But in a town in Seattle, they have 18 hours. Would the people in Alaska be able to estimate their fast down to 18 hours? No, because they have a day and a night. If you have a day and a night and that night lasts 1 hour, and you had to fast for 23 hours, you'd have to fast.
Conversely, they have some times of the year which they will have only 2 hours of daylight and 22 hours.
Nah.
Right. And so that would be their fast. Yeah, that would be their fast. So when does that happen?
Yeah,
When does that happen? Alhamdulillah. All right, so I think let's do the last hadith, 551, and we'll be done with. And that one, the one who dies owing days of fasting. The one who dies owing days of fasting.
Narrated Aisha radiallahu anha, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, if anyone dies when some fast due from him has been unfulfilled, his heir must fast on his behalf. Agreed upon.
Man mata wa alayhi siyam. The one who dies and has fasting which is due from him. Wa alayhi siyam. Is that general or specific? Wa alayhi siyam.
Not specific.
It's specific. Why is it specific?
Because there are some people that, for example, I think the sick, for example, if an old man is so sick.
Well, obviously, it's going to be somebody who couldn't fast. I hope. I hope it won't be somebody, but it could be somebody who was negligent too. Somebody who just didn't fast. But now the word siyam. Man mata wa alayhi siyam. Okay? This is nakiratun fi siyaq al-ithbat. This is an indefinite noun in a confirmed or a positive context. They have some fasting for them. That's what we call mutlaq. It's what? It's absolute. That could be what? Any fast. You guys see that? Any fast. Could be the fast of Ramadan, could be the fast of what? Another. You guys see that? It could be an oath that they made. But the hadith isn't specific. You guys understand that? So it could be either one of them or it could be both. Now if you guys go back to the qawaid, the principles that we gave earlier in the beginning, we said that when we want to understand the ahadeeth of Rasulullah, one of the best ways to do that, in fact the best way to do that is to turn to what? Fahm al-Sahaba, the understanding of their parents, because they what? They lived the revelation, they walked with the Messenger of Allah, they understood what he intended better than anyone else. And those companions, Aisha being one of them, the one who narrated this hadith, and others, they said that this hadith refers to siyam an-nadhr. It refers to what? The siyam that was upon the person because of an oath. So they say that if a person made an oath and said, "Oh Allah, if you cure my child, I will fast 30 days for your sake." And that relative, a son, a daughter, a brother, they were aware that they had made this oath, and then the person died before fulfilling it. Then that's the oath that the wali, the closest relative, would do what? Would have to fulfill and would have to what? Carry it out. But this hadith doesn't refer to the fasting of Ramadan, which means that if a person died and they have some fast of Ramadan that they didn't fast, then there's no what? Qada for the what? For the wali. For the wali. So one of us shouldn't feel that if his father died and didn't fast, that he has to then now fast. You guys understand that? Tayyib? Is that clear? We also have to understand in general that the acts of worship that we're allowed to do for the deceased, the acts of worship that we're allowed to do for the deceased, al-asl fiha, the original rule when it comes to them, is that we need permission. You guys understand that? That the original rule is that you can't do anything on behalf of the deceased except that which the Sharia has authorized. Do you guys understand this? Let me repeat this again. The original rule is that you can't do anything on behalf of the deceased. You can't do an act of worship and ask thawab be given to the deceased, except those acts of worship which the Sharia has authorized. And the proof for this is that the companions, whenever they wanted to do something for their deceased relatives, they would always come to the Prophet and ask. Like the hadith of Abdullah ibn Amr. He said that his mother, matat faj'atan. His mother died suddenly. So he went to the Prophet and he said that my mother died suddenly, and I believe that if she could have spoken, if she could have said something that she wanted to do, or there was something she could have done before she died, she would have given charity. So can I give charity on her behalf? And the Prophet said, no. He said, tasaddaq an ummik. He said, yeah, give charity on behalf of your mother. And this is one example of many examples where they wanted to do something for their deceased relative and they would go to the Prophet and ask. That shows that they understood that the original rule is that we can't what? We can't do it unless it's authorized. So we shouldn't think that the opposite is the case. Oh, if I want to do something for my relative, I can do it unless what? Proven otherwise. No, it's the opposite. So we need proof that we can do something on behalf of our relative from the acts of worship. We need proof that you can fast Ramadan on their behalf. We need proof that you can pray on their behalf. We need proof that you can read Quran on their behalf and ask that the thawab be given to them. We need proof for this. Don't want to get into issues of what people do and what people don't do. Just want to give you the principle and let you think about it. That everybody should want to do what they can do to help what? Help their relative after they've passed away. Everybody should. And everybody should do what they can do. But what they shouldn't do is they shouldn't authorize for themselves the doing of things which Islam, which the Sharia, which the law has not authorized. Because they won't benefit their relatives, but they may also harm themselves. You guys understand that? So this is an important thing to realize. That there are, and that's the other thing too, is there are lots of things, there's lots of people who busy themselves in things that they can't do and abandon the things that they can do. So you'll have people who will do a certain thing, which I won't mention, and they'll spend lots of time and money doing that thing. And they will never do what? Raise their hands and just make dua for their deceased relative, which could go a lot further for them than the things that they're doing, which won't benefit them because they haven't been legislated. And we know that the Prophet ﷺ, he mentioned specifically the effect of dua for the deceased. So he mentioned specifically in the one hadith, the famous hadith of Abu Hurairah, he said, Kullu amal ibn Adam qatta'. All of the acts of worship performed by the son of Adam will do what? Come to an end, right? They'll stop, they'll cease. He won't be able to do anything to benefit himself. Illa thalath, illa min thalath. Except 3. And one of them is what? Da'watu waladin salihin, or waladun salihun yad'u lahu. A righteous child who what? Who prays for him. That's going to benefit. So where are these dua? Where are these prayers for that father, for that mother? There's lots of other things going on, but who's like raising their hands in the middle of the night, weeping, asking Allah to do what? To forgive their deceased parent. So we'll stop there and we'll resume tomorrow inshallah ta'ala. هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. تفضل يا شيخ.
Let's say if you had a relative that passed away, like can you let's say like give out a charity for him? Like let's say can you buy a book like the Quran and give it out and say, okay, I'm giving this out for charity for my relative that passed away.
Yeah, because of the hadith of Abdullah ibn Amr, that he said, can I give charity on behalf of my mother? Another example is the companion who came and said, can I make hajj on behalf of my deceased father? And he permitted it. The companion who, or like this example of the one who made another, they made an oath, and you can fast on their behalf. So anytime we have legislation or we have permission from the Prophet, then all bets are on. It's just when we don't have that, that's when we need to refrain. That's when we need to refrain. Tafadhal.
If the traveler, if they begin the day out traveling and they're fasting and they get home, do they lose the right for their option to break their fast because they are home?
Yeah, if they fast at the beginning and then they get home, then they lose the option. Why? Because al-ibratu biwaqi al-hal, that the ruling goes hand in hand with the reality of the person's circumstance. So in the morning when they were traveling, the reality of their circumstance was that they were traveling, and so they had the rukhsa, they had the option, the concession. But when they returned home and they were fasting, now they're a resident, so they no longer have the option because their ruling has now changed. Their circumstances have changed, and so has the ruling. The same would be true though if, let's say, a person is in the habit of traveling daily for work or whatever. So they travel, and at the time of dhuhr, they are traveling. At the time of dhuhr, they're traveling. So now the traveler, one of the concessions he has is that he can combine between dhuhr and asr or billah. So now at the time of dhuhr, he's a traveler, he has this option. Is that not so? So he can take advantage of it. But he knows that he'll return home before what? Before asr is out, right? But at the time when he offered the asr, he had that what? That concession. And now he's offered it. So when he returns home, no one can say, hey, you have to offer it now because you're muqim. La. Because al-waqi bi-ibrat, I'm sorry, al-ibratu bi-waqi al-hal. That when I offered dhuhr, I had the option to also offer asr because I was a traveler at that time. So I offered it. You follow me? So it just depends on the condition and circumstance at the time. So when in the morning, if he had chosen not to fast, then he would have been fine. But once he got home, now the ruling goes with it goes hand in hand with the circumstances. You're not traveling, can't break your fast.
By the same token, if he woke up in the morning and decided, I'm not going to fast because I'm traveling, he didn't have the intention. If he didn't eat, if he got home, he still can't. It's like a man who woke up and didn't eat.
Say it again, because that was one of the things I wanted to mention, I think, and I forgot to mention it. That's a good point. Go ahead, say it again.
He was traveling.
He was traveling or he wasn't traveling?
He was traveling, and in the morning, he decided he didn't have the intention to fast.
Okay.
But
he didn't eat anything.
He didn't eat anything.
Hey, but when he got home, he was like, well, I haven't eaten anything, I might as well complete my fast. No.
Same as the person who
Same. But I want to say something. This goes hand in hand with what we talked about as far as the qawaid, and how we always take the understanding of the companions, even if it goes against our own understanding. We always, and this really shows our submission, ya ikhwan. And it shows that we're people of principle, not people of what? Desires. There's a mas'ala related to the musafir, and that mas'ala is, suppose the person intends to travel, and he has not yet left for his journey. He hasn't left yet, but he intends to travel. Can he go ahead and eat and drink? And so when I'm reading this issue, and as I'm reading it, I'm like, no way. He hasn't traveled yet. There's no way he can do that, right? Because the concession is for the traveler, and he can't do that until he has actually engaged in travel, and then his circumstances would dictate the concession. And then as I'm reading it, you come to the second opinion, which is that, yes, this person can do that, and they start giving the names of some of the companions, like Anas and others, who they did this.
Some of them do that once they pack the camel.
Yeah, like Anas, he was still in his house. Anas was still in his house. And the other companion, he was on a boat. He got on the boat, and they're just leaving the shore. But you can see all the buildings and everything. And he started eating, and they said, what are you doing? And he said, are you displeased with the sunnah of Rasulullah? And that was it. And these are companions. What do you do? what do you do except what? Submit. You know, it's just like the hadith where the Prophet ﷺ, he said, man shahida an la ilaha illallah dakhil al-jannah. He said, whoever testifies that there is no deity worthy of worship of Allah will enter paradise. So Abu Dhar was present when he said that. So he said, wa in zana wa saraq, ya Rasulullah. He said, even if he committed a fornication and he was a thief, O Messenger of Allah. And the Prophet, he said, wa in zana wa in saraq. He said, don't qualify what I'm saying. If there was a need for qualification, I would qualify. What I'm saying is absolute. When a person says la ilaha illallah, he'll enter paradise. So he confirmed it again. He said, even if he was a thief and he committed adultery. So then Abu Dhar, he said, wa in zana wa in saraq. Ya Rasulullah. He said, maybe you didn't hear me. I'm saying if he was a thief and he was, and he was a person who committed fornication. And the Prophet said, wa in zana wa in saraq. Yeah, I heard you. And I'm saying it again. So then he said, wa in zana wa in saraq ya Rasulullah. He said, even if he did that? And the Prophet said, wa in zana wa in saraq wa raghima anfa Abi Dhar. He said, if he was a thief, if he committed fornication, and even if Abu Dhar doesn't like it. And as I'm reading this mas'ala, right, and as I'm reading it, I was like, yeah, even if I don't like it, if that's what they said, they know the deen better than me. I just have to what? Accept it. I have to accept what they said. They know the deen better, and they wouldn't violate. They wouldn't. Their piety wouldn't allow it. And Allah endorsed them in a way which lets you know that their piety wouldn't allow them to do something that goes against the deen, and something they did become common knowledge, and no one would say, hey, that's wrong. So when 2, 3, 4 of them do something, it becomes common knowledge, and the others don't voice any objection. You know what? It's the right thing. So that's an example from many examples of what? Of their fahm superseding anything, our understanding, or the understanding of those who came after them. Yeah. طيب هتفضل يا شيخ.
If I have an intention to fast the next day, then next day I'm traveling to somewhere, can I break my fasting?
Okay.
I have attention before the Fajr.
Hey.
Then next day,
The same day.
traveling to somewhere. Breaks my fasting.
Yeah. So for Ramadan, and you have the niyyah at night to fast. Wake up and it's like, oh, I have to go to such and such place for business. Yes. Yes, you can break your fast. The fact that you had niyyah the night before doesn't change the fact that now you're a musafir. Al-ibratu biwaqi' al-hal. So if your condition changes and that condition affects the ruling, then the ruling will change also. So once you make that intention to travel, you're a musafir and you're allowed to take the rukhsa of the musafir. Eh? Yeah, I saw it. Tell her I'm going to address it, but I need to address it tomorrow because I want to do a little research on that one to make sure I give her a good answer. Okay? All right. Salam. هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين.